Life can be messy,
Life can be unpredictable,
but a whole lot of love.
and a little wine makes it all work.
This is Love and Jesus Juice. Hey, Paula.
Hey, Kirby.
What are we drinking?
We are drinking it's called Dread Red from Simmons Winery.
I like Simmons Winery.
I do too, and I love the changes that they've made.
Yes.
We had not been there for
Several years.
quite a few years. And we went down recently, actually when we went to the winery that we did last week.
Yep, on that same journey.
On that same trip. So if you're hitting one, I think you should just hit them all.
Mm-hmm.
And Simmons has amazing food.
Amazing pizza.
Oh my
Fabulous
gosh.
pizza.
And it was several years ago, but they built a new building.
Mm-hmm.
It is top notch, super sharp. Even with the quarantine, the way that they were running everything and doing everything was phenomenal.
So they have a winery and they have a brewery. The brewery was very heavy on IPAs, which was a disappointment for me.
Yeah, not your favorite, but you did find...
I did find some beer I liked, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so this is just a really fun winery. Again, one that you could go for a date night. You could go on your trip through wineries, because we know that you can only hit so many of them, right?
Yes.
You got to eat along the way.
Eat along the way.
Yeah, and so this was really fun because it gave us a stop to go to get lunch, and then we went to other ones.
And they are officially in Columbus, Indiana, but that's not really true.
That is a that gives you a sense of a town, which
yes,
it's not.
It's not. It's kind of out in the country. It's actually, I think it's closer to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Which is, if you're not from Indiana, you have no idea what I'm talking about. But it's kind of in between in the country, and it's a great little journey. And then all of a sudden, boom, you've got a brewery and a winery and a restaurant, and they are the home of the chocolate-covered bottles.
Yes, which is super fun. And again, we had been there. I mean, did we decide how long ago it had been? I don't know.
Probably 5 years or more.
And we enjoyed it then. And just with life, we thought, well, we've done that one. And so this was a great time to go back. And yeah, we definitely loved the chocolate covered bottles.
So what can I expect from Dead Red?
Dread
Red.
Not Dead Red. I think that you are going to like this. It's called a red table wine, but it is not as dry as some of the wines that we drink. So if you are trying to find your way into the drier wines for whatever reason, or like to experience, this is a really good one to experience a little bit of that. And it was great with pizza too.
Great with pizza, okay. And we should have ordered pizza tonight.
Yeah, we should have.
We were going to have hamburgers, but I think this is going to go well with the hamburgers.
Yeah,
too.
so it's got a little bit of a Merlot taste to it. And I cannot remember. Do you remember if they told us? Well, here we go. Are you ready?
Words on the back.
Yes, let's read on the back. 80% Zinfandel and 20% Cabernet Sauvignon grapes. There you go. Okay. I still think it tastes like Merlot. But
well, I think it almost tastes like Chamberson, too. Just like a good Chamberson.
Yeah, like a really good Chamberson. Anyway, love this winery. Their marketing person is excellent, I would say. I don't know who's doing their marketing, their bottles, their whole, doing all their things is brilliant, and has made this stop in the middle of a cornfield.
Yep, I think they have a lot going for them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's get to it for tonight.
Yes.
First off, I want to kind of start with some of the stuff we usually put at the end of the
Okay.
podcast. We need you to go to our website. We need you to join our fan club, sign up for our newsletter. We need you to subscribe on your podcast platforms. And most importantly, we need you to share us on social media.
Yeah, and when you rate us, that actually helps.
Yes.
Because that makes us jump up. And so that may not be how you search for podcasts, but a lot of people just go into a podcast platform and they just look to see what's kind of happening.
Right.
And so that allows us to pop up a little sooner. And we are passionate about what we're sharing just from our experience. But if it's been helpful to you in any way, shape, or form, would you share us? So share the links, share the podcast. If you hear one that you love, sharing it on your social media is super helpful. So really word of mouth is the best way because there's so many podcasts out there.
No, yeah, we're a little guppy in a big old ocean of podcasts, and there are some big sharks out there that have networks.
Yeah, that are doing amazing things.
But they're the ones that are getting their listings at the top of Spotify and top of Google Play and Apple iTunes. And the only way we can start to get up there with them is if you share us and rate us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, share us, would you, please?
Okay, so a couple of weeks ago, we introduced a concept called Born to Fly 360, which is a program we'd been working on for many, many years.
Yeah.
And we kind of introduced it. So review that for our audience.
So this really came out of, we started to understand just from what our experience with people, growing people, leading teams, that giving somebody a business goal and not talking about all of the other things didn't do any good.
Right.
So it's great to have a goal to lose 20 pounds. It's great to have a goal to earn a career car or whatever, literally, whatever it is. But if you're in an instance where it's a professional goal, if you physically feel like crap or your relationships are not good or you're a workaholic, none of that, it's not going to work long term. It's not sustainable. And so it really came from this concept of there's more to life than a title.
Right.
There's more to life than if you're a great runner and you want to run a marathon. There's more to life than that. Like, you're not going to do that well long term if you don't have a well-rounded life.
And we had heard a lot of people talking about balance and being frustrated because they could never achieve this work-life balance concept.
Which, yes, exactly. The concept is exactly what it is.
And so we started talking that it's a myth.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as balance where you're equal on both sides. The teeter-totter is perched in the middle. And
or there's only two sides to anything.
Or there's only two sides, yeah.
Right? Like, that's not even possible.
There's just so much beyond all of that. And everybody has a different influence in different areas. So we decided to put together this idea of, okay, well, how do we address everything? How do we grow as a whole human? Not just as a work human or not just as a diet healthy human. How do we grow all of our human? Without
being completely overwhelmed.
Right.
Because can we agree that when you go, I'm just a mess.
It's a total mess.
Well, a lot of times our tendency is to go, like, kind of like setting a New Year's resolution. Yep. Well, I've already screwed it up.
Just give me a bag of cookies.
Yeah, just give me a bag of cookies and let me go.
Absolutely. So we thought, okay, well, first of all, we've got to have a source for change. And we came up with the concept of the core principles, which are focus, consistency, and discipline. So tonight I want to talk about the first one of those, which is focus.
Okay. So this is really going to trickle down. So you're going to start from these big concepts that are kind of the center stones of the whole concept.
And they may be kind of hard to wrap your hands around at first.
Right. And so I guess what I would encourage you to do is if you're sitting there listening to this or you're walking listening to this, I know we have a lot of people that are out walking when they're listening. If you would take this, digest it, maybe take some notes even, and then walk with us as we go through this process. Because if it's new to you, it may feel a little bit big at the beginning.
Yes. And we're going to talk about a lot of concepts that seem like they're standalones, but they really overlap.
They really do. And that's my hope for you, which is why I also don't want you to try to do it in a vacuum.
Right.
Right.
It's been so fun because I've been trying to take these training right now and put them into paper and get it into a manuscript form, yet one that's followed in kind of like an instruction manual for life. And it's really, really hard one because not everybody starts with the same set of pieces.
Right.
And some people have a greater need in one area than they have in another area. And it's just that whole process of trying to put it together. So don't get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Take it one step at a time and go, all right, what are we talking about now? What are we dealing with now? And that is the concept of focus.
Okay. So just focus. I initially, like, my first thought when I think of focus, I think of a camera, right? Mm-hmm. Like a camera lens. You point it towards something. It may not be in focus. You do some things, or with the phone, you tap it, whatever, and you get things in focus. So where do we go from there?
Well, the big thing is to understand that focus is extremely important because it gives you a place where you're going to go.
Okay.
You can't call American Airlines plane ticket.
Right.
And then go, okay, their next question is where?
Where are you going?
You have to have the where.
So it's not an open-ended, I just want to get on a plane.
Right. You don't go into a restaurant and then bring you food. Most places. There's a destination at the end. And so focus is about understanding what your individual destination is. And we break it down because that can be very overwhelming into two different types of focuses.
Okay.
We've got the guiding focus and the actionable focus.
Right.
So your first one is your guiding focus. This is the big daddy. This is the one that rules your life.
Okay, so when you're thinking focus, or when we're thinking focus, they're thinking focus, those that are listening, you're talking about at the end of your life. Like
right, the guiding focus. That's exactly where we're going.
Like end of my life, which is like we're going to count on so far down the road. We've got to get that into focus to make sure that we're on the right track.
And you can even talk in terms of purpose. You can talk in terms of direction. And you may not even actually know where your end of life focus is because we change over time, but you know where you think it would be today.
Okay.
So there's some flexibility in that. It doesn't have to remain fixed for the rest of your life. But I would say most people, if they really sat down, really took some time to think it through, they could talk to themselves, okay, this is what's important to me.
And so maybe that's more the question. What is most important to you? And then...
Well, that's how you get to the focus.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you've got to walk through the process.
And if you're... So some of you may be like, I think about this stuff all the time. Like I am I dig deep. I think deep thoughts. And then there are people like me who don't. Like this takes a lot for me. But even within that, if you don't have this, no matter what your personality type is, it is going to make it very hard to get there.
Yeah.
So just like you're saying with a plane ticket, they don't care what your personality type is.
Right.
That you still have to know where you're going.
Still have to know where you're going. Let me use a different example. Let's talk about college.
Okay.
Let's say that you were offered full ride at Harvard.
Okay.
If you graduate in 4 years.
Okay.
If you take 4 years and one class in the summer, you have to pay it all.
Okay.
You lose the whole full ride. You're now in student debt to your eyeballs.
Totally. Harvard did offer this to me, and I just...
So you can relate to this, right? Okay.
Maybe not.
If you graduate in 3.5 years, you have to pay it all back.
So that's only 4 years. Okay.
Only 4 years. You literally have to have it done, and you have to have the right number of credits to maintain a full-time student all 8 semesters. I mean, it's a very, very strict parameter,
tight window.
Tight window for you to fall. And the penalty of falling outside of that is $200,000 in debt. You are going to zero in for 4 years on what you need to do each semester.
Right. Yeah.
So somebody comes along, your best friend, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, somebody you just met who's really hot, and you just think and says, hey, I've got a chance next October for a 1-month cruise around the world with fill in the blank of your favorite famous person, and you can go for free.
Okay.
I mean, that's like the shiniest of the shiniest squirrels and objects that you can chase, right?
Right.
If you say yes to that, you're going to forfeit the full ride.
So basically, the free cruise is going to cost you $200,000.
Right. So what focus does, the concept of the focus goes, okay, I know where my end is. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to do everything between here and there. I'm going to filter my decision-making between here and there to make sure that I end up there.
Okay.
So we take that to the bigger level with the guiding focus and go, okay, when I die, I want my mark on society to be remembered as.
Right.
My eulogy to be written as whatever whatever your story is. Maybe you want to be remembered as somebody who's a missionary in Africa. Maybe you want to be remembered as a published author.
You know, and one of the things that I love that you've talked about, or we've talked about a lot, is it's rarely it's rarely a missionary, or it's rarely a job. It's rarely a title.
Right.
Right? It's got to be bigger than that, because those targets move.
Yeah.
Those are moving targets.
Right.
And so it really has to be who you want to be in the world.
Right.
Rather than what you do.
I remember telling my high school students when I was a teacher that, I wanted at some point when I passed away a flag to be flown half staff for me. Right. Because as a history teacher, that was kind of the bar of an impact that I had at the time as a 23-year-old new teacher. But it's that concept. I said, I don't care if it's a town. Yeah. I don't care if it's a city or country. That somebody felt like I impacted them in a way to fly the proverbial flag at half mast. Yeah. That has been my life focus since I was a kid. Right. And so it becomes kind of a filtering of, that's why I went into teaching, because I thought that would be a good way to make that difference. It was a filtering of decisions. Mm-hmm. When we talk about the guiding focus, that's what we're getting to, is how do we put into words the impact we want to be? One way to do that is through the mission statement, which we've talked about on previous episodes, which is?
Yeah. We are missionaries, fighting mediocrity and
converting the complacent
to live a life of excellence. I know it off the top of my head. I didn't know you were going to point at me.
You did it to me last week.
I did. No, I totally did, which is only funny because I said it like it was no big deal. Yes. So we are missionaries fighting complacency and we're fighting mediocrity and converting the complacent to live a life of excellence.
So when we put that together and decided that was going to be our guiding focus, we kind of went through a process of what's important to us.
Yeah.
And how do we describe the words that were like that?
Right. And so one of the things, and this may be another way to think about it to kind of get there. One of the things that I've been saying to my people a lot that I coach is, what does your best life look like?
Exactly.
Is that same? So it's the same concept. Mm-hmm. So that's not going to be your mission statement.
Right.
Your best life isn't going to, quote, be your mission statement, but it will probably lead you there.
Yeah.
And what I love to encourage people to do, and especially, I'm going to give you some qualifiers on this because I do work with a lot of personalities. And so this is not bullet points necessarily.
Right.
This is not punctuated correctly. This is not a few words. Like one of my people that sent theirs back to me, she said, I'm not sure that these are in the right priority order. And I'm not sure that this is, and I said, no. I just want you to brain dump.
Right.
Like everything you can think of. And then you can start qualifying. Is that really important? Or do I think that should be there? The same is true of what do you write down that you think other people think you should be that you don't. And so that can just give you a way to filter to that guiding focus.
Exactly. And this guiding focus should not necessarily be an objective thing.
It can't be. I don't think it can be.
But it's literally the one where if a new opportunity presents itself to you, cruise, whatever, you can filter it. Does this get me closer to that? How does that play a role into it? It can be something completely fun, because that's all part of who makes us up and gets us to the end of the road. But it can't detract us or go against the guiding focus.
And I think for ours, oftentimes, there are a lot of things that fit into that. Then we have to go to what we're going to talk about next.
Right.
But I think that feeling like it's too big or too little. So listen to the next piece and then know that it doesn't have to be so specific, because I think that may be a little confusing too.
And that's the reason why I broke it down into the two types of focus.
Right.
It's when we get into actionable focus.
Which is the second part of it.
Which is the second part of it. Now we're into concrete goals.
Yes.
Now we're breaking down the path we're going to take to get to the guiding focus. We know we want to leave Mark X on society, but we need to do that through how we relate to people, what job we have necessarily, what our education is. It could be 1,000 of different things, but it's moving beyond where you are today to move you down the yellow brick road, so to speak, on your way to Oz, to reach and fulfill your guiding focus. So
the part that I think is so important for someone like me, and so I don't know if anybody listening can relate to this, but I hear guiding focus, and I hear converting complacent to live a life of excellence. Mm-hmm. And somebody asked me to lead a Bible study. Oh, absolutely. I mean, that would totally fit in, right? Until we get to the actionable, and then it may or may not.
It may or may not.
Doesn't mean it's not good or it's bad. I mean, but so you really do have to do both of them if you're actually going to get there.
Right, because one person's vision of our mission statement may still even be different than our vision of our mission statement.
Oh, totally. Which is why you can't take somebody else's.
Exactly.
Anytime that somebody said, okay, this is the formula and this is the words you're going to use, run.
Because you and I tend to always think globally.
Right.
We have a macro view of everything, which just kind of gets us in trouble, because it is kind of hard to bring it into the micro, where another person may think very local based, in which case that same mission statement could be applied to a Sunday school teacher who does it for 50 years.
Absolutely.
Who leads a Bible study, whatever, because that's still having that same impact at the one body or the two body level, which is absolutely fine, because if that's your gift.
Well, we've said a lot. People talk about wanting to be a missionary, and they think, well, I can't go to Africa. there is plenty to do here. So there's no qualifier on, well, if you do this or if you do that. So mission statements aren't qualified in that way.
No. You may be a block builder.
Absolutely.
You may be the second grade teacher that instills in a kid a love of language.
Okay, so this is kind of off the subject. No, it's totally off the subject, but I should share it anyway. So I was out walking today, and the trash guys were out. Mm-hmm. And I have so much respect for people like trash guys. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I just think like they do. Maybe they love doing it, maybe they don't. But that is a job that we need done, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this young guy, the truck stops. He jumps out, big grin on his face, hollers back at the guy, runs around, throws the trash in, jumps back around, and jumps back in his truck. And I could not help but smile.
Because he was having his best version
right
of
there.
His day right there.
So to me, I guess when you talk about mission, so be the best trash guy.
Right.
Right?
He may only be that happy while he's doing trash for the next year, and he may move on.
I have no idea.
He may end up owning a trash company.
But I literally was grinning watching this trash guy in the middle of town.
And that's part of the idea of this, again, chasing the rabbit that you're chasing. The whole idea of the BTF 360 is we don't know what this particular guy's story is.
None.
But he may be using this as a stepping stone to something else. This may be his passion. Born to Fly 360 says, whichever your answer is to that, whichever it is, do it with excellence in that area and apply and grow. Grow in all 6 regions that we'll talk about later, so that if you have an opportunity to stepping stone, you can. If you choose not to take it, you have the choice because you've prepared yourself for it. And you've done it in a way that isn't stressful.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so sorry I chased that one, but it made me smile.
So going back to actionable focus. Basically, it's goal setting.
Yeah.
It's a real example of it, but it can be goal setting, again, from the point that you're at. We've talked about this before, but a great example of this is when we were about when we lost our last business and we were way in debt.
Can we just say the only business we've ever lost, the only one we're going to lose?
Yes,
like,
not the last. Okay.
Like that.
Well,
yeah,
we lost our last business. It was
okay.
For the last time, we lost the business. Whichever way you want, put your comma wherever you want to put it.
We're not losing more businesses.
We're not losing more businesses. We just keep starting them. We're going to keep them, and even if they're on life support, we're not going to lose them. Okay. Anyway, we were in a lot of debt.
Yes.
So much debt that we had credit card companies suggesting to me that I just file bankruptcy to get them off my back.
Right.
When I explained to them where I was.
Yeah, not a good place.
When they were calling for their $10,000, I was openly honest with them. So they were behind like 38 other people and $300,000. Happy to give it to you. If you give me a chance. I'll give you $1 a day if you want. That's what I can do. Anyway, there was a mourning period. There was a time period where I was literally mourning my first experience at major failure.
Right.
But when I moved past that, I very distinctly on January 2nd of 2010, when we were faced with over $300,000 in debt, I sat at my brand new desk that I put together out of a bunch of pieces of stuff in my new basement office. Now that we moved out of the store and closed it all up and put a bow on it. And I sat at my computer and I stared at it on my first work day, and I began to draw our dream house. Right. That was my first task. Mm-hmm. Because I was so overwhelmed with how to get back to a guiding focus, which was, at the time, taking care of family, paying bills. Just all I could see was survival.
Right.
So I was like, okay, I need to get a focus point that's closer.
So
but still big.
Right, exactly. So it wasn't that it was changing your focus.
Right.
It was literally bringing it, again, going back to focus, it was getting it closer to you.
It was creating a visual representation of, if I could get there, the rest would take care of itself, or it would put me closer to that.
So it was still lining up. Mm-hmm. It wasn't this stray, like wild hair off to one side that had absolutely nothing to do with anything.
Right. But the idea of the dream house and the belief that we could get there is what I saw every day going to work for a year. Which I printed it out and had it on my desk.
And so that's the biggest piece of this is, for most of us, when you're talking about a guiding focus, that's not going to happen tomorrow.
No.
Your best life, I hope that you're not feeling like the grass is always greener, because that's totally not what we're saying. But we are moving towards always being the best versions of ourselves.
Exactly.
And I feel like I'm better today than I was yesterday, and I hope that I will be better in the future. But to be this ideal person, isn't going to happen tomorrow.
Exactly. So I stepped it down from there. If the goal was to get us into a dream house, then the step down from that was to get us out of debt.
Right.
Which was huge.
Right.
So the step down from that was, how do I pay the bills this year?
Yeah.
How do I meet obligations? Step down from that was, how do I pay the bills tomorrow? And so I literally would start each day and working my way back down to, okay, you can't just stare at it. You've got to work it down to the actionable levels. So actionable focus is actually actionable foci, or focuses. Those of you who are following the podcast regularly know I struggle. I don't know which is the correct word, so we're going to say foci/focuses. And we work our way back down to the one that we can do today.
Because that is what I find that people get caught up in. They either get caught up in the minuteness of things, or they get caught up in the bigness of things. So some of us, our strengths are totally futuristic. Like, all we can think about is the guiding focus.
Right. And then we never really get closer to it because it's always this big out there.
Yeah, we have no plan to get there. And then some people are so focused on the minuteness that they don't look up and realize that they have this piece of this 3,000 piece puzzle.
Right.
Like all they're looking at, and so they can't match it to anything.
Right.
They have no plan.
They're either overwhelmed or they've just settled in. They've become like what's the Dr. Seuss book where the person's inside of a society on an elephant?
Yes.
All they see is their little neighborhood.
Right, exactly. And so that's why it's such a great, why both of these are so important, and why I believe that you can't do one without the other.
Exactly. And you have to get out there and you have to build this. You do. You have to take the time to step back and go, wait a minute. I'm hearing this whole idea of a life purpose and a life focus, and all I know is the kids, most of them got baths today, and they slept a few hours, and I need a break.
Right. Like, I survived today. Everybody survived today. Win.
Right. I was talking with somebody at lunch today, and we were talking about recreate and refuel, and she's a mom of young boys, and she's like, I struggle because where does the mom stuff fit into that?
Right.
And that's when people get lost. Honestly,
totally.
They get so lost because they forget about the bigger picture. Now, what we want you to do in the focus section is create that vision so that it's there when you're ready to chase it.
Right, because when things are so far away, sometimes we talked about a few weeks ago having buckets. Mm-hmm. And I think that kind of actionable focus is buckets. Right? It can't just be losing weight.
Right.
There has to be, are you healthier?
Right.
And so when you're a mom of young kids in a full-time, and she's a full-time mom, or full-time worker with kids, her husband works full-time with his own business. Like, they are, and they're active in their community. Like, they've got lots of plates spinning.
Lots of plates spinning. And so the question is always knowing where you're going.
Right.
Because then you choose wisely your habits and your hobbies and your diversions so they're feeding you in the right way.
Right.
Even one that can seem like it's totally just out there can be actually gearing you towards a future, the next step in the rung that gets you towards the type of mark you want to live. And that's why we don't make the guiding focus objective.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anybody who's going to go through the life's patterns can have an objective end of life thing. One, you don't know when end of life is.
Right.
It can happen anytime. And two, it's your priorities change.
Absolutely.
And there's a commercial about a soon to be retiree who wanted to buy his dream car, and he's working with a financial planner, and they say, I think you can do it if we just move some money around, and it's like a Corvette or something, I don't know. And then his granddaughter moves in with him.
Right. Yes.
And so he ends up buying her a car that's more teenager and practical and whatever. And she's like, well, what about your dream car? And he says, this is my dream. Because that's what happens if you make an objective guiding focus.
Right.
All of a sudden you wake up one day and go,
yeah,
but that doesn't mean what it used to mean to me.
Right. It's so true. And I think especially if you're in that season of hopefully not piles of debt, but maybe, or young children, and you feel like, I don't even know who I am right now, then again, go back to that. What's one thing? If you have your guiding focus, what's one thing you can do right now? Don't think you can do all the things.
Right.
So find actionable items that you can do. And that may mean that you walk for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, that really...
It may mean you pick up a book and learn to draw.
Right. I mean, so that's what I love about these concepts is I am very much a type A person, like chase it down. The faster, the better. We were both raised by entrepreneurs, like that's what we do. And while I think we both learned how to work very, very hard, there was a lot of times that we were chasing too many rabbits and not doing any of them well.
Right.
And so I think getting very real about what's one thing I can do makes you feel like you've got to win, even when you're in the middle of crazy, whatever crazy is.
And everything's a scale.
Totally.
There are things that don't really follow your guiding focus, but on a scale of 1 to 10, you're okay. They're so high up on that scale that you're okay if for this season you don't get any closer because it maybe fits into a secondary focus or a third one or whatever. So again, it's not even absolute, but it's there. It's still the older you get and the more stable your life is, the easier it is to really use that as a filter. But even if you have young kids now, it's important to do that. And your guiding focus for you and I is the same. We are fortunate. This will be the last little point we make, but you and I are very, very fortunate because we were able to come up with one that we share. And
I would say that there are going to be people that's totally going to be possible for and not. So don't qualify it if that's not true for the two of you. If you're married, whatever relationship you're in.
If you need to have two separate ones, as long as they're compatible, then that's great.
But you know what? I think even if you are two very different people, then there are clearly some things that you meet in the middle on.
Right.
And so if your guiding focuses are not really compatible, then how could you come to a place where you have one that you jointly do together?
A third one.
And so I think that's really important because, some of you may be like, we're so different, which is why we work. And it may not even be that you're married. Maybe it is a significant other. Maybe it's just somebody that's super important in your life that really you connect your goals with and things like that. It may be that you have that conversation with them.
Yeah, but what has to happen is that I can support what you want to be.
Absolutely.
And you can support what I want to be. And then if we need a third one where we are together, then that's great. That can be as simple as your guiding focus is to be healthy together and to run marathons together. If that's the common point,
that's a common point,
then inside, one travels one direction, the other travels the other direction, but you're both training so that you can come and run together.
Yeah.
But that running together becomes what you do together.
Yeah.
And you're combining that
and so maybe,
welding it together.
And then maybe that's where the conversation comes to, where if you are listening to this by yourself and you have a spouse or significant other that isn't listening to it, create your own first. I would tell you to go through this process yourself first. I really believe that the reason we were able to come to one together was because we were working separately.
Yeah, we figured out who we were separately.
Yeah. I still feel like there are a lot of days I'm in the process of understanding myself better, for sure. But it does help to have.
No, this is a finished project. We've done all this. We've gone through it. No, we're
perfect at this point.
We are processing this as we are teaching this.
Absolutely.
And I don't see it stopping.
And I feel like since we started teaching this years ago, I can tell you I know more now, and I know what I don't know more about now than ever before.
Absolutely. So if we've tickled your fancy on this, then you can go and find the Born to Fly 360 Facebook page, and you can follow us there. It's as the book is being written, we're adding more. We're going to start sharing some of these episodes on that page as well. But of course, we want you to be a member of the Love of Jesus Juice Facebook page, where you'll see these, and join the conversation. Tell us if we said anything that struck you tonight. That hit you and you go, okay, I want to know more about that. Ask us the questions, because this should generate some ideas, because I don't even know that when we talk it out, we know what we're saying half the time.
Yeah, we need your input. We really do want to hear more from you. So chime in. Tell us what you're thinking.
And that's it. We'll see you next week.